Fun times in Cleveland again. Still Cleveland. Come on down to Cleveland town, everyone. Under construction since 1868. See our river that catches on fire. It's so polluted that all our fish have AIDS. We see the sun almost 3 times a year. This guy has at least 2 DUIs. The flats look like a Scooby-Doo ghost town. Don't slow down in East Cleveland or you'll die. Our economy's based on LeBron James. Buy a house for the price of a VCR. Our main export is crippling depression. We're so retarded that we think this is art. It could be worse though, at least we're not Detroit. We're not Detroit.
Welcome to the Friends of Fantasy Benefits Baseball Podcast. I am Justin Mason, and that theme song tells you exactly who's on today. It is Dave McDonald from Riversource.com and the High Stakes Heat Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Dave, welcome back.
Hey, buddy. Good to be back, and always glad to hear that song.
It feels like it starts the show off with such good energy, right? Like I'm just smiling from ear to ear. It feels so good.
Love it. Feel good, just like Cleveland. I think you just invite me and Jake on simply so you can play that song every time.
Absolutely. And, you and I, we're gonna try to hammer some final details out here probably after the show, but hopefully you and I will be talking more regularly. It's just a little bit of a teaser for all the folks out, so you get to hear that theme song hopefully a little bit more often than just once in a great while. But before we jump into kind of our news and then our topic for tonight, remind everybody where you can reach us on social media and then kind of talk about what you do.
You can reach me at RunDMcD. Make sure to add that D on Twitter. And I play a lot of fantasy baseball and talk a lot of fantasy baseball. Jake and I have been very lax with our website, rosesource.com, so not much to see right there right now, but we are hoping to get some stuff going for next year for you guys. And then I also write for Rotographs, and that's what I've got going on right now.
There you go. And Brandon Warren's giving us little signal in the chat. Same with Richard Sands. This is live for those who want to follow along. I'm going to try to keep coming back every Monday at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. So if you want to join us live and ask us questions, we'll definitely take on some questions here as the show goes on. But let's get to a little bit of our news and notes. Yes, follow Dave on Twitter, though, at RunDMCD. I totally fucked it up. Yes, at RunDMCD. It's right in front of me. Like, how am I messing this up? And you follow me on Twitter at Justin Mason FWFB. You can follow Friends of Fantasy Benefits at Fantasy Benefits. Let's start with the news. Mike Trout apparently has no timetable to return, and they're going to make a decision on whether he will return. So, I think the first question is, are you dropping Mike Trout if you've been holding on to him this long? And then 2, what are we doing with Mike Trout heading into next season? Because I think there are going to be some people who want to put him in the first round and some people who don't want to put him in the first 2 or 3 rounds.
Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, and I don't want to say this definitively right now because I don't have any Mike Trout anywhere purposefully. So I'm not up to date on every single thing, but I do know from what I was hearing and just thinking about what the Angels are playing for, I can't see them bringing him back this year. It feels like they're going to shut him down. I'm not telling you definitively to drop him. I would maybe look into that a little bit. I mean, if you've got weekly changes, you're probably not making this decision until Sunday. But it would not surprise me to see him be shut down, unfortunately, for this year. Do you have any, Justin? Do you have any Trout?
I have him in a dynasty league, and then I've got him in a couple draft and hold. So, I mean, I'm not dropping him in the dynasty league. Obviously, it's a dynasty league.
Right.
I can't drop him in the draft and hold. So, like, I'm not in this position. But if it's me, I'm dropping him. And it's because I don't think there's any reason for them to bring him back. I mean, at this point, it's just pure pride, right? He wants to play, and maybe he does come and play the final week of the season, and that would make me feel a little bit better heading into next year. But ultimately, like, this is a team that's not 500. The team that are going to get the 2 wild card spots are going to be way above 500. They've got no shot. Like, I don't know exactly how many games out they are right now. I can look it up pretty quickly and easily, but it's not. They're not in this race. I mean,
they've got nothing to play for. There's really no reason to risk their franchise player. Well, I guess one of their franchise players now with Ohtani in town, but yeah, there's just no real reason to push him. And as far as next year goes, I'm almost assuredly going to be out on him. I was out on him this year because of the lower body injuries that he's had recently. He kind of had this aura like he was totally risk free, but the last several years, he's had several lower body issues, and I don't think people took that into account enough. I also didn't feel like he gave me what I personally was looking for from a first-round pick. I didn't feel like he was going to run it this year much, and he hasn't. And he's an outfielder. For me, I want probably like a shortstop, third baseman who can run and hit homers. And I don't feel like he should even be in consideration for a first-round pick next year. And I probably wouldn't take him in the second either. I don't know. We'll have to see more about what he does this offseason with this injury, but I would expect to not own any Mike Trout again next year.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very hard for me to put him in the first round. And that's one, it's the injuries that have seemingly kind of popped up year after year now. And two, it's the fact he doesn't run. Like, I mean, we're talking about, even if we get a Mike Trout season, right? Like a full 155 games, they would be amazing, right? We're talking probably, a 300 batting average and 45, 50 home runs. It's probably coming with like a handful of stolen bases. And while that would be amazing, the fact that you're not guaranteed those stolen bases and you're also definitely not guaranteed 155 games, the combination of those two things makes him too risky for the first round.
Yeah, I agree. And I also don't think he has that. I'm not saying he's not good for average, but he's not that kind of guy who can hit like 320, 330. He can hit 300.
I think he is.
You think so?
I think he's got that kind of talent, obviously. I still think on a pure just straight skills perspective, he's still a top 5 player in all of baseball.
He hasn't hit above 315 since 2013. So maybe I can't bank on it. Obviously
he was hitting 333 this year.
What was his BABIP, Justin?
456, but I don't care. I just don't care. He can do it. If anybody can do it, Mike Trout can do it.
You're not going to sustain a 333 average with a 456 BABIP.
Mike Trout can do it all. He can do it all.
Get out of here. No. Look.
I wouldn't book him for that.
His strikeout percentage was up to 28% this year. Swing strike rate all the way up to 10%. His average was gonna tank, baby. He was gonna be like a 260 hitter this year. Steamer had him for 272. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying he can't be better moving forward, but it's just I'm gonna go in another direction next year.
Yeah, no, and I probably will too. I doubt with the way things. Like I said, I didn't get very much Mike Trout this year. So I can't imagine I'm going to get a ton of him coming into next year either. Let's talk about a couple guys who are hitting the IL on my Giants. Johnny Cueto and Alex Wood both going to the IL. This is, obviously Cueto, who cares, whatever. He's probably NL only fodder anyways at this point. But Alex Wood has been really, really good. And the question is, are you going to hold on to him with the hopes that maybe he's back after a minimum stay?
I'll be honest with you. I have no Alex Wood, so I didn't even know what happened. Was it COVID related?
I honestly don't know either.
Look. So, yeah, placed on the IL due to a COVID test and symptoms of the virus. Okay, so he's probably not going to be back for at least 7 to 10 days then, it sounds like. Right now, you really can't afford to drop productive starting pitching. It's barren out there, man, in 15-teamers. Now, in 12-teamers, you can probably move on. In 15s, though, if I'm looking at getting him back in a week and a half, something like that, then I'm holding him.
Well, I mean, if he's actually tested positive, then he's got to be out for at least 10 days, right?
Right.
So then you're talking about he's feeling symptoms. So there's no guarantee he's coming straight back. He's probably going to go do a minor league rehab assignment. We've got 31 days left in the regular season, right? Maybe not even 31 days. So, like you're saying that he's probably going to be out for at least, let's say, 15 days. You're holding him for the last 15 days of the season? Because I'm not.
I mean, yeah, since I don't have this decision to make, I really don't know. But if you can replace him with a guy that you think can be productive for you, you do that. And this is speaking in generality right now. If you can, right now, the last month of the season, don't worry about where you drafted guys. Don't worry about how good they can be when they're healthy, blah, blah, blah. If they're not producing for you right now, you need to move on. You need production right now. And that comes before everything else. I'm merely saying it's really difficult out there in 15-teamers to find any starting pitching at all. But if you can, then yes, move on.
Yeah, no, I mean, I understand. Like, I play in mostly 15-teamers, and it is barren out there on the waiver wire. Fab this week sucked. Especially when I wasn't one of the guys who had enough money for Edward Cabrera or even Glenn Otto or I got what was left over, and that wasn't very good.
I shockingly didn't win any Edward Cabrera with my $4 bids this last week. So, I did win some Bryce Wilson, so that'll be a fun ride. Yeah,
that sounds like fun. I did get Edward Cabrera in one of my main event leagues, but apparently I didn't think I was going to win all the bids I put in, and I now have $1 left in that main event league.
No,
rest of the way.
Oh, you're so fucked.
I wasn't going to win that league anyways, or even finish in the money. I was just keeping it competitive.
Okay.
But that was not well planned out. At least I won't have to worry about doing much fab rest of the way in that league.
You cannot go into September with less than I would say $12 minimum, and that's like bare bones. So, because there's going to be so many guys that get shut down, and guys who get, veterans who get benched, and rookies who are called up. You're going to see a lot of change in the next 30 days, and you're going to need to be making. Even if you just have dollar pickups, though, you can kind of keep up and just keep your roster filled. But if you don't do that, people are going to be able to pass you in the last few weeks. It's happened to me, and I've had it both ways. More often, people have passed me, but because I use my money too quickly. But you need to save that money for September.
Yeah, I definitely. That one was not poorly executed, or that one is not well executed.
Granted, if you didn't have a shot anyways, fair enough. But
yeah, it is what it is. I'm not super worried about it. I don't think I'm going to cash in either of my main event leagues. I think my other one's going to fall just short as well, which is just a bummer, but is what it is. Hopefully my other leagues will carry me because I'm going to win at least a few NFBC titles this year.
Well, I know that the pod league ain't going to do that, but I am glad that you're going to be paying for our entry fee next year, so that'll be nice.
Yes. Where are you guys in that league?
We're in the discussion for the top 3, but I think we're like 6.
Oh, okay.
There's a big hodgepodge between 3 and 8, and we're in there somewhere. There's all of us are separated by 5 points or something.
I am not in that 3 to 8. Things have not gone well in that league. I started Eric Sogard for much of the season.
No. Well, so for people who don't know, we drafted this back in January. Jake and I's team, Rose Stars High Stakes Seed, our podcast, we have Shin-Soo Choo and Ryan Braun on the team. So that tells you how long ago.
This is one of the reasons I made the bet with you was because I felt like there was a legitimate chance by the time the season started, you guys would not have a full outfield because you drafted Dalton Varsho, who didn't make the majors. You had Ryan Braun, Shin-Soo Choo. I can't remember the other guys.
Pilar, who we thought was going to be a starter and go back to Colorado, and then he ended up signing as a backup with the Mets, and we thought we were fucked. Seriously, we had that very same thought. Thankfully, our 5 outfielders that we did have managed to stay healthy and productive for most of the season, which is pretty incredible. And then we've had some weeks of Pilar and Aquino and some of our backup guys that have actually been able to sustain us when we needed them. But yeah, the people who were ready, like Rob, who's running away with this league in January, just, I mean, you know, he was ready in January to go. We were not, and I don't know what your, you know, we're drafting March people. We're not drafting January.
I'm about to finish my first draft of 2022. Like
do you do well in these leagues where you draft that early? Like,
you know what? Oddly enough, the majority of the leagues that I'm going to cash in this year are coming from December and January. It's because I do so much prep work that I'm ready to go, and everybody else is just getting their feet wet. You know,
I mean, it doesn't matter how ready you are. There's so much that can happen. I mean, like, you know,
this is true.
Signing in Korea. Did you know that was going to happen? I mean,
I didn't.
Okay. Right.
But I also didn't go after any Sin Chu or Ryan Braun. So
I mean, that's the point, though, right? Like there's too many unknowns. There's too much that can change. There's injuries that can happen in spring training. There's just, I like to have more control personally. I'm gonna cash almost all my leagues, and this is one of the ones that I'm not. There's like two, and it's one of the ones that I drafted in January and February that I'm not going to cash in because I'm just not good at that. I don't know.
I think there's advantages and disadvantages to drafting early, right? I mean, the disadvantages are what you're saying, right? Injuries happen. Like, you know, I mean, my most rostered closer coming into the March drafts was Trevor Rosenthal, right? Like, I got 0 from him. My closer in this league that we're referencing was Trevor Rosenthal, right? Like, and so like I have 29 saves on the year. Like, there's nothing I could do in that category. I was just screwed. Because it's a, you know, draft and hold, and there's no pickups, so nothing I could do the rest of the way. You know, but at the same time, like, if you're in on a guy, you know how many times I drafted Cedric Mullins outside the top 500 picks, like 8 or 9. Like you can get values that are crazy if you're in on guys early. And so in some ways that plays a little bit to my strengths. Because by the time, you know, other people start really drafting, they've already listened to me do 50 or 60 podcasts, you know, saying who are the guys I like, right? You know, I didn't get Cedric Mullins in any of my high money drafts this year because everybody knew who I wanted. And so for me, I like doing the early draft. Plus, it gives me things to write about, things to podcast about, and really gives me a really good understanding of the player pool coming in.
Yeah. No, I mean, those are good points. I think like what you said, it plays to your strengths personally, and I think my strengths are more having more information benefits me more. So and maybe it's just I haven't done enough early leagues. Like, honestly, that was the first time I think I've ever drafted in January. I'm just not an early drafter, so maybe if I did more, maybe I'd be better at it. But for right now, I think I'd rather just wait until March.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I definitely will continue to draft early. I will have my first set of rankings done hopefully early or mid next week, probably. So for those of you who subscribe to the Sleeper on the Bus Patreon, you can get those there. Then let's see, Chris Paddock, he's scheduled to return. The question is, do we care?
Yeah. It's like, yeah, he's coming back. Is that a good thing for your fantasy team, though? I think you're better off maybe taking the zeros. I mean, I don't know. I have no Paddock anywhere. I honestly didn't even think about it at all.
Yeah, the only place I think I still have him are on a few DCs, and then in that dynasty league where I have Trout, and that's a 3-sport dynasty league, and I'm so far ahead in that league, I didn't activate him tonight. Like, I just left him on my IL. Like, yeah. Like, not worth tanking my ratios at all.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think he's going to be one of those post-hype sleepers, you know, like Cedric Mullins. He's going to get forgotten about, and then he's going to add a pitch at some point, and then he's going to be relevant again. I mean, he's still got the talent. He just needs to put it together. So I like the idea of taking a late round shot on him either next year or the year after. But for this year, I'm not really interested.
No, I think that's fair. Do you think he will be a guy you target next year? Because my guess is he's going to go outside the top 200.
Yeah, I mean, he could be. It's all going to be cost. You know, I mean, we'll have to see. I guess you might know. You might know where ADP is currently. I haven't even looked.
I don't think there isn't an ADP currently. I think I'm one of the few insane people that have already started drafts and stuff. I'll be interested. I think I'm going to jump into that NFBC draft, email draft that Blankenship and Todd Zola and them do like in October.
Okay.
And I'll be interested to see where guys go then. And we'll sit down. We'll have a chat about what the ADP looks like after that draft.
Yeah.
Freddie Peralta, he's scheduled to return as well. This is a guy that, he has been absolutely fantastic on the mound this year. The question was really, how deep was he going to be able to go into the season, considering he wasn't a guy that had thrown a lot of innings before. The
Right.
Brewers were a team that was openly talking about that they were going to limit their guys. What can we expect rest of the way with him, and where do you think he's going to be a guy you're willing to draft next year?
Yeah, and it was never a question of talent with him. It was always a question of, he hadn't thrown many innings, and would he throw a lot of innings this year? So, unfortunately for me, I didn't get any Freddie Peralta this year, despite liking him. But now I'm seeing that it was because, again, I not super up to date on him because I don't own him anywhere, but mild shoulder inflammation. Anytime I see shoulder, that definitely doesn't make me feel good about things. And I think they're going to look at his 121 innings coming off of 29 innings the year before and 85 before that. I think that they're going to look at that and say, okay, maybe we don't push him very much. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go like 3 or 4 innings here. They've got Ashby ready to pitch to. I just don't know how much they're going to use him down the stretch because they need him for the playoffs still too. Right? Aren't they? They're. I believe.
Yeah, they're winning this division. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just making sure I'm not. Making that up. But I wouldn't be pushing him too hard. You'd probably want to build him back up. But it wouldn't shock me to see them kind of either piggyback him or, just use him for like 3 to 5 innings, kind of moving forward. I don't know. What do you expect?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they limit him in starts. I think that he's going to be one of those guys who probably goes 3 or 4 innings so far, or once he gets back, because I don't know that he's going to be in the rotation during the playoffs. He may be one of these guys where he's like first man out of the bullpen in the playoffs. Especially obviously Burns and Woodruff, but they've also got like
Right.
Brett Anderson. You don't want Brett Anderson working out of the bullpen.
Although
you want to.
You don't really want Brett Anderson working anywhere, if we're being honest. But
yeah, that's fair, but they have to have 4 starters for the playoffs.
Yeah.
I just don't know that they want Peralta to be that guy. I think Lauer has shown he deserves. I think they're 4 in their rotation for the playoffs of Burns, Woodruff, Anderson, and Lauer, and then Hauser and Peralta are coming out of the bullpen. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if he's only working 2 or 3 innings. We have to remember, they said they wanted their guys to only go 100 innings more.
Right.
That's like 8 innings away.
Exactly. And
So
they need him in some capacity for the playoffs.
Yeah, so it would not surprise me if he only goes 2 or 3 innings in his next start. I think that's really going to kind of clue us in. Is he a top 20 pitcher next year?
Ooh. Again, I'd have to look into it more because I don't know. But I would probably go with no, just because I want more longevity. He's got the talent, but I just I think top 20 might be a little too rich for me. How about you?
Yeah, I don't think he's a top 20 pitcher for me. But I've always been the anti-Peralta guy. Like I was completely taken aback by what he's done this season because
really? Okay.
There's always been for me a bullpen risk for him.
Yeah.
Kind of been a 2-pitch guy. The fact that he developed the 3rd pitch is what really really kind of set him apart this year. And I think a lot of people got rewarded with a bad process early on in drafts. I think as we started to see the 3rd pitch late in spring training, I could understand why the hype got out of control and stuff like that. But people who were banking on him early before we knew that 3rd pitch was coming were just throwing darts and hoping to strike rich, and they did, and good for them. But
it felt like he was really great value. Like it still felt like you were really paying up for him.
Especially at the end. I mean, people were taking him in the top 130 or top 140 picks, and I wasn't willing to do that. It just seemed way too rich. All right, let's move on. Talk about Matt Barnes. He's going to go to the COVID IL. He has tested positive. He was already on thin ice in terms of keeping that closer job. Is it Adam Ottavino's job now, you think, moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's Ottavino's job. And if you own Barnes, you should have. If you have weekly changes, you should have already moved on yesterday. It's with a month left, you're not going to hold a guy who was struggling and going to COVID IL, hoping that he was going to get his job back. Like, there's no time for that. You needed to. I mean, you had Estevez, you had Ottavino. You've got Gallegos. There's a lot of guys that you could have been targeting to pick up instead. So yeah, if you've got Barnes, you need to move on.
Yeah, I agree. So we're just gonna move on. Your boy Cody Bellinger,
not my boy,
has been an absolute disaster this year.
Yeah,
I call him your boy just because it's so much fun. He's been awful. He's now going to be a platoon bat, a strong side platoon bat. But I mean, can you drop Cody Bellinger in leagues right now? Because I mean, I feel like you can, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you haven't already.
Now, I personally didn't because I know that he could go on a hot streak here, and they're just in 15 teamers. Unless you need that bench slot, you can afford to hold him. But yeah, absolutely, you can drop him if you see someone more productive out there. And right now, I'm not really sure who's not as productive as Cody Bellinger. I mean, if you've watched him bat, he looks lost. I mean, he's got that long swing, and I mean, he changed it coming into the year. I mean, when you're MVP, what should you do? Obviously, change your swing. But he had shoulder problems. I mean, he was the poster boy for everything that I was trying to avoid. And you call him my boy because you know that he got auto drafted to me in my biggest draft of the year. Which, by the way, remember I was like, hey, if I can pull this off and win this league, that'll be like legendary. So week 10, I was in 13th place out of 15, mostly because I had at one point 10 guys on the IL and couldn't even start enough guys in my league. Then I started to get healthy. Tatis came back. Bellinger still hasn't done shit, but I'm now up to 4th, and I'm very close to 2nd place in that league.
That'd be pretty impressive.
Which is our boy Toby, by the way. Yeah, I've done a lot of.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So Toby's winning that league?
No, Toby's in 2nd.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty close to him. I'm only like 9 points behind him or something like that right now, and I was like 49 points behind him like 2 months ago. So yeah, it's I've come a long way with picking up the guys that I needed to compete, and I had good pitching in that league. So Cody Bellinger is an anchor, but not.
Maybe he can get hot for you the last month. I have no problem dropping him in shallower formats. I mean, in his 10 and 12s.
For him, I would, honestly.
That's the problem.
There's just nothing, like knowing what he's capable of in a 15, in 12s and 10s, yeah, I would have moved on a long time ago. In 15s, it's always just a question of who can you pick up that could potentially give you what he could potentially give you. And, so for right now, I still have him. Who knows?
Well, let's finish out the news with the Cardinals bullpen. Manager Mike Schlitt said he's going to start playing matchups in the 9th inning, which ostensibly means that Alex Reyes is not the closer, that this is turning into a committee. You mentioned Giovanni Gallegos as a guy that people should have been specking on this week in terms of, guys who might be able to make an impact in the saves department. Is he the guy that you think is next man up?
I do, yeah. And did he not just get an op, actually?
Oh, did he? I had not seen.
I feel like he might have because they won 3-1 today, and I think he got the save. He did. Yep. And he had a clean inning. The thing is, I think a lot of times coaches use this coach speak of playing matchups and stuff. It would not shock me just to see them straight up go to Gallegos. So I would, you can. If you still have Reyes and you're playing in, where you can't make changes until Sunday night, you might as well hold him another week. Obviously, you have no choice, I guess. But if you're in a 10-12 team league, feel free to move on from Reyes. There's probably better options available. Like I'd even take Carlos Estevez over Reyes right now. So I mean Gallegos would be the guy to pick up for sure. I mean it's a decent team with and Gallegos has great skills. So absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's surprising it's taken this long, right? I mean, there were warning flags all season long with Alex Reyes that the underlying statistics,
so long.
They just did not match like the surface stats. Gallegos has been really, really good this season, and he's the quote unquote proven closer in that bullpen too. You know, having done it before, so I think he's probably the man up. Got the save tonight, so. Definitely go and pick Gallegos up. I want to talk about. We're going to move on and kind of get into our main topic. Before we do that, actually, let's answer a question from the chat. If you have questions, you can throw them in the chat. We'll answer them as we go. Jay is asking, "Hey guys, where are you at with your World Series picks? Southside Chicago got here, and I'm hoping to see my boys there. Who do you got?" I think Chicago's an interesting team. I think they've got all the pieces. I don't know if I'm willing to bank on or bet on them yet. It's hard for me to see anybody but Dodgers, Astros in the World Series. And what a story would that be? Kind of a rematch of that World Series that was quote unquote stolen. So that's where I would go, even though I'd love to see my Giants there. I think the Dodgers are the best team in the National League, and the best team in the American League are the Astros.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is where the smart money would go if you're betting, but you know, baseball, anything can happen. Honestly, I easily see a path where the Giants end up beating the Dodgers. I do agree that the Dodgers are the better team, but the Giants have a way of, I mean, they mix and match those lineups really well, really taking advantage of their guys who can hit lefties and righties separately very well. So it's really difficult for me to see anybody other than the Astros. I mean, you could say that the Rays have a decent shot, but I would feel more comfortable speculating on the Astros. I know he's a White Sox guy. The White Sox can do it too, man. They're getting healthy at the right time. You know, they got Eloy back. They got Robert back now.
That rotation is insanely good.
Yeah. Any of those four teams, I think Astros, White Sox, Giants, Dodgers, any combination of those four, I think are I could easily see.
Yeah. I will say this in terms of my Giants, because they have been holding on to this lead in this division all season long, in spite of the fact that the Dodgers have been insanely hot of late. If they are still leading this division at the end of the week, they've won this division, because their remaining schedule is insanely easy after they get through this week.
Right.
Like they finished this this trip right here against Milwaukee and the Dodgers. Then they have a series against Colorado. They have a series against the Cubs, and then I just lost my page with my schedule. But really, I think Arizona is a series. If they get through this week, leading the rest of this or leading this division, they're winning this division, and that means the Dodgers have to go play a wild card game against a team that's insanely hot too in the Reds.
Yeah, that's very true. Although Votto looks like he's starting to cool off at a bad time for them, but I mean he can turn it back.
Bad time for me as well.
Yeah, I mean he went on an insane run though. You know that you can't sustain that for that long, but he's had a hell of a year, especially the last 2 months, month and a half, something like that. He's been insane.
Yeah, he's just having a career season at age 37 right now, which is insane. What he's doing. But let's talk about some guys who are having really, really hot Augusts. And I kind of, we can talk a little bit about what their value is going forward rest of the way, but I'm more interested to see what your feelings are as guys for next season.
Yeah.
Because, some of these guys I think were on my do not draft list. Some might have been on your do not draft list this year. And we might need to change a little bit of the way we're thinking. And I think some of the names on this list are going to be surprising to people because they've struggled this year as well. but are finally starting to come around. So let's start off with Giancarlo Stan, a guy I know was on your do not draft list just because of his injury history, and we know your injury stuff. You do not like the injury guys. I'm okay with it a little bit more. He has had a pretty insane month so far, and it's kind of capping off what has been an okay season this year. Like, he hasn't had a great year, but it hasn't been awful. So far this month, he's 8 home runs, hitting .319. Is Stanton a guy that you would be willing to draft next season? Depending on the price, obviously.
Yeah, so that's really the thing, is all of these guys, it's all price dependent, right? Like, do I like risks? Not early in the draft. I take plenty of risks, but I make sure that I construct a roster that can, I assume the worst. I assume if I draft a certain guy like Stanton, I'm assuming I'm going to need to replace him. And so I make sure that I have extra padding on my team at his position or his resources. So if he's an outfielder who gives me power, I'm going to make sure I have another couple outfielders who can give me power in case he goes down. With Stanton, I talked about this on our pod. He's had I think something like 20 lower body injuries over the last 5 or 8 years or something like that. Just an insane injury history. So people tend to forget that when he's mashing homers in spring, and people just all are on board with it. And they're, oh, Stanton's so great. He has so much power. Oh my God. He's, 122 max EV. I get it. Tons of power. But that's all I'm getting, right? Like, I'm not getting steals. I'm not getting a great average. I'm just getting power. And you also have to remember, all those times he gets hurt midweek and everything, he's in your lineup. You're getting zeros for that time. So you're not just getting his whole stat line. You're probably sitting him for some of the times that he's homering because he's coming back, in between on a week where you benched him already and all that stuff. So guys like that just frustrate me. And he also came in this year, I believe, as utility only, correct? Like, I don't think he's outfield eligible. So not only that, I'm going to use my one utility slot on him. It just wasn't happening. I mean, because I don't remember what his price was, but it was still too high for me. So next year, we'll have to see where he goes. But I feel pretty confident that there will be someone in the draft higher on him than me.
I mean, it'll be an interesting kind of race to the end of the season with him to determine whether or not he'll have outfield eligibility. Because right now, I believe he has 14 games in the outfield. So he only needs 6 more. And he's been playing about 4 games a week in the outfield since Luke Voigt has come back. So I think he's going to have outfield eligibility, which will be huge. And really, all the guys outside of Nelson Cruz that were the UT only guys, and I guess Franmil too, are going to have outfield eligibility. I mean, JD Martinez is going to have it. Yordan Alvarez, who we're going to talk about here in a minute, is going to have it. It's all going to depend on the price, right? I mean, this year's price wasn't bad. I'm actually looking it up as I talk right now. But let's see, Stanton's price was $115. Like, that's not a bad price.
That's too high for me. I mean, look who else is around him though.
Byron Buxton, Matt Chapman, who we're going to talk about here in a minute, Mike Moustakas, Charlie Morton, Carlos Correa, Marcus Semien. Though the problem for me was, and the reason I didn't end up with a lot of Stanton this year was because I ended up with so much Nelson Cruz, which I stand by as a fantastic pick once again, year after year after year. But it also made I didn't get any Shohei Ohtani this year, so who knows? Like, right? I mean, I can take the victory lap one, and then I've got to take the loss in the other. So. I don't necessarily. I mean, if his price goes up from there, I think I'll have a problem with that. But if it's at 115, I think I'm okay with that. I mean, he's gonna, as long as he doesn't get injured again, he's probably going to finish the season with around 135 games played. The only issue with that is that 135 games is probably going to be like with, I don't know, 33 home runs. Which isn't bad. It's fine, but that's all it is. It's just 33 home runs.
He's also been relatively healthy this year. I don't know if Stanton might have gone to – I know he was hurt for some period of time, but not a real long time. So I would say this is one of his healthier years. So
Yeah, he hit the IL in mid-May. But other than that, he missed those 2 weeks in May. But other than that, he's been on the field. So, I mean, he hasn't missed a huge amount of time, but he also hasn't put up like elite numbers. Like the whole purpose of getting him outside the top 100 is like, well, this is a guy I'm getting outside the top 100 that can produce like a second rounder. And I think to your earlier point, if he's not stealing at all and he's not hitting for average, can he produce like a second rounder? Because at this point, is he much different than Jorio Solaire?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he makes better contact than Solaire. Like Solaire can hit 220 to 240. I think Stanton's more of a 250 to 270 guy. And he's obviously in a better. Well, now that Solaire is in Atlanta and they're actually hitting him second, which is an odd choice, but
he'll be a free agent though. So
that's true. Yeah. But actually, I was going to kind of compare him to the next guy on the list because he in main events. He went at the exact same time pretty much as CJ Cron. And my whole argument would be, why would I take Stanton if I can just take Cron? I mean, I'm getting the same power. Cron probably has higher average upside and doesn't have quite the injury risk that Stanton has. And I prefer to get a first baseman, frankly, than an outfielder.
Well, let's talk about CJ Cron then. CJ Cron, he's got 24 home runs and he's hitting 275. So he's having a pretty good season. He's having an even better August. His August, 10 home runs so far, hitting 384. I think part of the issue with Cron is I don't know where he's going to end up next year. He's a free agent. I doubt the Rockies bring him back. Though, I mean, who knows? The Rockies love to block their young talent. So they definitely could bring him back. So you would rather have a guy like CJ Cron than a guy like Stanton?
Yeah, and the other thing was Cron was so slow to come around this year because he was coming off of a season-ending knee injury last year. But he doesn't have a, it's not like he has a super long history that I know of with the lower body like Stanton does.
No.
So assuming, I'll have to go check my injury notes later, but assuming he looks perfectly healthy now and coming into next year, I think his price is going to be lower than it should be. I mean, if you look at the projection systems, they all loved Cron. I mean, especially obviously in Colorado. But I mean, this guy can hit, 275, 280. And he's got, I mean, Stanton has more power, but Cron has plenty of power. And I would rather bank on the stats that I'm going to get from Cron over Stanton. We'll have to see what their prices are next year, though.
Yeah, I agree that I think that Cron won't be as highly taken as highly in drafts. I think his ADP is going to be lower.
Stanton's just a sexier name, and it's also that New York Yankee tax. You see that a lot.
Cron's going to be one of those guys, I think, for those of you who do like early drafts like me, is going to be a bargain because he's going to be a free agent. He won't be one of the first people signed. He'll be one of these guys that he's like he was this year that signs at the last minute and then, ends up, going outside the top 250 picks. And you've just gotten a guy who's going to hit you 30 home runs from outside the top 200 picks. So, I like Cron a lot for next season. I think somebody's going to give him a shot. I mean, like I don't know where he'll end up, but he'll end up in a place where he can hit home runs. And yes, would the best place be Colorado? Absolutely. We'd love to see him back in Colorado. But even if he's in a bad park, he's got real manpower that plays anywhere.
Yeah, the average will definitely take a hit if he goes, when he goes somewhere that's not Coors. But the power will still play.
Yeah, but I mean, even if he's a 250 guy with 30 home runs, I'll take that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So,
for sure.
Let's talk about a guy who will be back with the team he's with this year and has quietly been excellent this season, and that's Jordan Alvarez. He's got 28 home runs, hitting 286 on the season, even a stolen base just for good measure. And as I mentioned before, he's actually played 28 games in the outfield, so he's going to have outfield eligibility heading into next season. So far this month, he has 9 home runs, hitting 305. Were the fears on his health overblown coming into the year? And where do we think he's going to go next season? Or are you going to be willing to buy at that price?
Yeah, so he was another guy who I was off. He had issues with both of his knees. Now he is young, which works in his favor, but knowing that he was 23 years old and had so many issues with his knees already, it just felt like a really bad sign. The doctors that I talked to on Twitter were off of him. So here's the thing. Sometimes it's what's difficult is we see the results and we say, okay, I was wrong results wise, but does that mean that my process was wrong? Because if I avoid 20 guys and 17 of them end up being good avoids for the right reasons and 3 of them ended up being fine, okay, I missed out on those 3 guys, but who cares? I didn't get trapped by those other 17, right? So was I wrong to avoid him? It seems like it, but I don't know if that's a process thing. I think it just happened to work out that way. Now, moving forward, am I avoiding him? No, not unless something happens between now and the end of the season to cause me concern again, because this is a guy who I've always loved the skill set of. I mean, this guy can legitimately hit 300, with 35 homers. So, and he's in a great lineup. I mean, with outfield eligibility next year, he'll probably be like a second-round pick, I would imagine. This guy has everything going for him. And honestly, his home run per fly ball rate might even be – I mean, he was at 33% in 2019, and he's only at 24.5% now. Now, maybe that was a little inflated from 2019, but he could still hit. He might be a little bit even behind where he could be. He makes great contact. I mean, 91% zone contact rate.
That's insane.
Yeah. I mean, this is a power hitter who can hit everything. I mean, he is an elite hitter overall, period. So him being healthy going into next year is pretty damn exciting. I mean, he's essentially like Vlad Jr. pretty much.
So I have to ask, would you take him in the second round next year? I mean, obviously it depends on who else is available in the round, but this is a guy who's not going to steal any bases. Right. So you're getting power, you're getting batting average, RBIs and runs, right? So 4 category production.
Yep.
Is that enough for you to take him in the second round?
The question is, because my first round pick will most likely be a guy like Trey Turner or Jay Ram, someone who can give me 5 category production. The question is where I can get my ace. Because I generally like 2 hitters and 1 starter, my ace, and then I go to closer in the 4th round. Depending, obviously, this depends on a lot of factors, but generally speaking, that's how I want to start building my team. So it would depend on who the ace available in the second was compared to the third, and what the other hitters available in the third would be. Like, how much of a downgrade would I be going from that ace in the second to an ace in the third, and going from Jordan in the second to Jordan in the third? But I will say that it would not shock me to own some shares of him next year.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a real hard time taking him in the second round, largely because, like you said, like usually I'm either attacking starting pitching right there in the second round. If I didn't attack it in the first, but if I did attack it in the first, if I attacked starting pitching in the first, it means I need speed in the second round, which means I can't take a guy like Alvarez.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot can change depending on when Trout comes back. If he comes back healthy at the end of the year, Trout or Alvarez next season.
Alvarez, easily.
Okay. I don't know if it's that easy for me, but it's way closer than I thought it would be coming this year. Because I was not in on Alvarez. The knee issues really, really scared me.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't see any reason. See, Trout had multi-year issues with the lower body, and he's older. I don't have that same level of concern with Alvarez, but again, I need to look into it more before taking him. But just right now, that's my gut feel.
My biggest issue with Alvarez coming in here was the type of knee injury he had. He had a patellar tendon tear that he was coming off of, and having had that injury before, I know a lot about it. And it can be really, really devastating. It's what ended like Victor Cruz's career in the NFL for those.
And you two being very similarly athletically.
Yes, clearly.
I can see how that.
Yeah, since we're both very, very big, strong guys, right? No, I mean, like what I said in the season, I was like, listen, I mean, this is the type of injury, like he is the type of player that probably could bounce back from this because his game isn't based on cutting, right? And the patellar tendon, goes over the top of your kneecap and attaches to your, the shin bone, and it's the cutting action that is so devastating for players coming back from this. And so, considering he's only going to be jogging around the bases and not sprinting around them, more than likely, I felt like he could come back from this, but I wasn't willing to take the risk on it. I think I'd be willing to take the risk next year, but it really depends on my roster construction early on. And I hate giving myself a lack of speed in the second round. If I'm going to take a hitter in the second round, I want it to be a guy like Kyle Tucker, who's going to give me power and speed.
Right. It would be very difficult. I see. The thing is, Tucker is those profiles of guys who give you power and speed like Tucker typically find their way into the first round in 15-teamers. So
I think he probably will be a first rounder.
I would, unless you're picking late in the first, and maybe you could get him with your early second. I don't think most people are going to be in a position where they're even going to have the choice of Alvarez.
Well, you may have a choice between Cedric Mullins and Yordan Alvarez.
Okay.
And that's where you start having some real questions about Cedric Mullins' value heading into next year. But that's a topic for a different podcast.
Yeah, that is an interesting question. I would like to get your thoughts on that.
I talked about it with Matt Williams on Sundays, or not this last Sunday, but the Sunday prior's Sleeper in the Bust. And I said that back end of the second, early third is kind of where I'm looking, I think, right now, in terms of Cedric Mullins. I think I'm going to get priced out on him.
Where do you rank him compared to Starling Marte?
I rank Marte higher.
Okay.
Marte's ability to steal bases, and we're going to talk about Marte here in a little bit, but I mean, dude, he's been insane since coming to Oakland. And
oh my God.
I don't know where he's going to end up, but it's pretty much anywhere he ends up, it's going to be a good spot for him. So.
I mean, some people were concerned that when he got traded to Oakland that he wasn't going to, because Oakland typically stymies people's running, and they have not put the reins on him at all. He's just had free rein.
And one of the things that Paul mentioned on an episode that I did with him was it's not that Oakland stymies. Oakland doesn't have the people to run. Like who were they going to send Matt Olson on?
No, like Laureano.
But Laureano was stymied because he had the shin splints. Like, remember like how Laureano started the year off with like 8 stolen bases in like the first week of the season?
Yeah.
Or something insane like that. And Mark Canha is all of a sudden running. Oakland wants to run, but they just didn't have the personnel to do it.
Okay.
And now that they've got Marte, they can. So, one of those things where I think often maybe we look too far into, like, is a team running? Well, and we don't look far enough in to go, like, well, do they have the personnel that can run?
Yeah, usually I do. I would have to go back and look, but I thought there was other guys, but that weren't running also. Because I compare it to within. Obviously I'm not expecting Matt Chapman and Matt Olson stealing 20 bags a game, but so yeah, but that's a good point. I did forget about his shin splints. Was that in 2020 or 2021?
2021.
Okay, because he didn't run in 2020 either. In 222 plate appearances, he ran 3 times. So. I don't know. I mean, maybe people thought he would run more than he would.
And maybe Starling Marte is like, I don't understand what a red light is. Be like, it's like, listen, I'm paying for a contract. I need to get paid here.
Yeah, dude has 42 steals in 45 attempts. So who's to tell him otherwise?
I mean, and since coming to Oakland, he has 19 stolen bases.
That's
in a month, less than a month.
Yeah,
I mean it's been insane. I think it was Nick Pollock that said like he had more stolen bases than 5 teams did together.
I'm actually surprised it's not even higher.
Yeah, it's just insane. We'll get to him here in a minute. Actually, let's just jump him up the list since we're already talking about him. He has just had this insane month. I like I said, 19 stolen bases so far in the month of August. But he's also hitting 361, 386, 491 with 2 home runs. And I think he's a second rounder next year, right? And I think there are going to be people who try to put him close to the first round.
He's always a guy that I'm in on because, and I think it was because he was with, bad teams, the Pirates and the Marlins, everything. The people underrate he's got the five, tool skill set. He gives you speed, he gives you some pop, he gives you good average. The counting stats aren't as high as it would be on other, better teams, but I don't really care about the counting stats as much. I care more about getting those steals. I want steals from guys who are not shitty players. I don't want shitty players on my team. I don't want to have to rely on, Gerard Dyson and playing him with his, negative stats in the power categories, dragging my team down like an anchor. So just because I need stolen bases. So I target guys like Starling Marte. In previous years, I said I would take him in the first round when he was going like in the mid to late second round, and people were shocked. And it's just like, look, he gives me what I'm looking for. I just think that he's incredibly underrated pretty much on a yearly basis. Now, we're getting to the point, though, where he's about to turn 33 this year. So, speed is something that wanes, but coming off of a year where he's stealing 42 bases, I have a hard time seeing him going back to like 20 or below next year. Like, if I can get 25, 30, 35, I still think I'm going to be able to get value out of him in the second round.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to mention even before you said that, you thought he could be a first rounder in previous seasons. Todd Zola took him in the first round of TGFBI coming into 2020, and people lost their mind, including me. And I love Starling Marte. I've been a huge Starling Marte guy every year of his career, and continued that coming into this season. And so I really enjoyed kind of what we've seen from him. I think he's a surefire second rounder. And probably high, like the beginning of the second round, and with the argument that you could probably, depending on where he ends up, if it is a team that will let him run kind of as much as he wants, that he can, steal 50 bases. I mean, he's got 42 bases this year, just unbelievable. He has more stolen bases than he has runs batted in.
Yeah,
he's got 39 RBIs and 42 stolen bases this year.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I was looking back at my tweets from going into 2020. 3, 4, 5, 6. I had him ranked 12th overall. If I was doing a first round, he would have been like the guy I would have taken 12th coming into 2020. So, I've always loved him. I love the skill set that he brings. He's basically Jose Ramirez with a little less power in the outfield. So, what's not to love? And he actually has a better contact profile than Jose does. So, yeah.
He's the perfect guy to pair with Yordan Alvarez.
Yeah, I was actually thinking that too. Your average is going to be phenomenal, and you're going to be able to get that power that you need with the steals that you need, and two extremely reliable hitters.
If you're okay with taking an ace in the third round, that would be a pretty awesome start.
Yep, exactly.
So, let's move on to another one of my guys who's really, really hot right now, but has been really disappointing overall for this season. That's Anthony Santander, who has hit 250 this year with 14 home runs and a stolen base. But a lot of that damage has come in this last month. He's hitting 318 with 8 home runs and that stolen base. He's been injured all year. I mean, it's just kind of been a lost season. Starting to come on now, which would mean his price will go up from where it would have been had he just continued to struggle. Is Santander a guy you think you'll be targeting kind of late in drafts? Because I don't think he's going to go inside the top 150.
Absolutely. He was a guy who I targeted a lot this year, unfortunately.
You and me both.
Recently, yeah. Until recently, Tony and I dropped him in our main event. We needed guys who were either going to give us steals or homers, and he was doing neither. So we needed something else, and we knew it could end up being a bad drop. And I mean, it has ended up being a bad drop for us. But when you're not doing it, like you get to that point after the trade deadline, you're looking at those last 2 months. I need production. And he wasn't giving us production. So, he had all that time that he was dealing with injuries and everything, but, his K rate was way up. But I think you're seeing some regression to the mean now. His home run per fly ball rate is generally in the 16 to 17% range, and it's up to almost 14% now. But I think a couple weeks ago it was like 7%. It was like half of what it is now. So it's one of those situations where, like Solaire, you can kind of see this regression coming. Like, okay, once he's more or less healthy, I think we're going to start seeing some home runs coming. So I think he's a great guy to own from here on through the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, this month he's really just gotten things going. The barrel percentage is up. The max exit velocity numbers are really good. He's getting the ball in the air about 47% of the time. He's making 85% in zone contact. Like everything you want to see, and everything we thought we would be getting from him this year. We're just getting it at the end of the season. I think he'll be a popular sleeper pick. Like he's going to be one of these guys that Paul calls a wide awake sleeper, right? Everybody's calling him a sleeper, but everybody knows about him because people are going to sort by end of the year numbers, and they're going to go, "Oh, look, Anthony Santander was awesome," and nobody sees it coming. And he'll get some helium, but I think he'll also be one of those guys. Again, for those of you like the early drafts, will be a lot cheaper than he will be in March.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
All right, let's move on to the next guy. That's Hunter Renfro. Man, this guy just suckers me in. Like every year I go, oh, if he could just get full-time playing time. Oh, he goes to Boston. Like this is a perfect situation. Struggled out of the gate, but he's been absolutely on fire as of late this year. Let's see. Hunter Renfro is hitting, and I've just lost him. Of course,
he's hitting 258 on the season with 25 homers.
Okay, yeah. So, and I know he's doing a fair amount of damage right now, but for some reason he's not showing up on my chart. So, is Renfro like I know he can be kind of an all or nothing kind of guy.
Yeah.
But which can make him a little bit frustrating to roster. So far, during the month of August, 10 home runs, hitting 269. Is he a guy that you think you can target next season, or is this kind of like, thanks for what you've given me, but I'm probably not going to go back to the well at a more expensive price?
I absolutely will be targeting him. This is a guy who has that talent. Like, this was a former first-round pick, 13th overall, back in 2013. And it really looks like things are coming together for him. Like, it's hard for players to develop when they're not getting everyday playing time. And I've also noticed hitters going from Tampa to other teams tend to start to take off because Tampa is not a good hitter's environment, A, and B, they love sitting guys constantly. I mean, we're seeing it with Randy Rosarena right now. They're sitting him every 3 or 4 games. It's like ridiculous, but it's hard to get into a rhythm and stay in one when you keep getting taken out of the lineup. I've seen his swinging strike rate reduce from 2017 from 15% to 13.5 to 13.1 to 11.9 to 11.4 this year. So this guy's making more contact. His contact rate is up 5% this year. His zone contact rate is up 4% this year. And, he's doing exactly what we knew he could do, which is hit lefties and righties and hit bombs. And in a good Boston lineup, racking up those runs and RBI, 71 runs, 77 RBI. As long as you're not expecting a phenomenal average, but he's only got a 278 BABIP, but he's hitting 258. I don't see any reason why he won't be able to hit, 250, 260 moving forward. So, I'm a Hunter Renfro fan.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's probably like a 260 hitter with like 30 plus bombs.
Yep.
And while I think his price will obviously go up from where it was coming into the year, like I don't think it's going to go through the roof. Like I don't know that he's even going to be a top 200 guy coming into the season next year.
Probably top 200 because he's on. Well, is he a free agent or is Boston?
No, he's under team control through 2023. Okay.
Yeah, I think because he's in Boston, I think he'll be a top 200 pick. I would say somewhere in the 175 range.
But he's not even getting like full-time playing time. So like at the end of the season, he's going to have like 140 games, and not have missed any time. I don't believe on the IL. So I think did he miss time on the IL?
I think so because I'm pretty sure he's playing.
I'll double check.
Just about every day, if not every. I mean, yeah, he's playing pretty much every day for a while.
He did not hit the IL. So
okay, so he missed some days early on with an injury, but once we got to like May, he's been playing every day. Like he's had like 4 days off total, or 5 maybe.
So he'll probably get to, let's see, he's got 115 games played, say 30 games remaining. He plays 25 of them. So yeah, 140. I think there are going to be people who kind of fade him, that say, oh, he's maybe overproduced against righties, going to go back to, potentially being a short side platoon guy. Like, do I think he's going to go outside the top 300? No. But like, I don't think I'd be surprised if he's inside the top 200 picks.
Okay. Well,
Which I think would make some a really, really nice bargain.
Yeah, if he's going outside the top 200, I expect to have plenty of Hunter Renfro next year.
Because he's been a guy who's always mashed lefties, but just not done well enough against righties. This year's hitting 251 against right-handed pitching. If he can keep that even just somewhat respectable, even if he's hitting 230 against right-handed pitching, what he does and carries against the lefties, he could be really, really valuable in fantasy next season. I think he's already a huge boon for those people who took a shot on him late.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think he would make for a really good target especially if he's going outside the top 200.
What about Matt Chapman? Because Matt Chapman was a guy that I think a lot of people targeted. I didn't get him a lot this year, but I got him at a few places. He was absolutely dreadful for much of the season. Has started to come on late. He's hit 7 home runs in the month of August. Still hitting 244, though. What's helping him is a 16% walk rate to give him a 372 on base percentage in the month of August. Is Matt Chapman a bounce-back candidate for next year?
He was a guy who I always felt like went too high. He was never a target for me. Kind of troubling that in the short season and then this carrying over into this year, his swinging strike rate has took a massive leap. So when he was around 9% in 2018 and 2019 with all that power, I liked him a lot. Then last year he had that 15% swinging strike rate, and this year it's 13%. It's a little bit better, but he's not making enough contact for me. Like, this is anytime you have a guy like that, contact rate 70% or below, like he's at 70% right now, 75% zone contact rate. They're going to be really prone to those long cold streaks, and you're going to have, generally they're going to hit 220 to 240, somewhere in that range, and you're just going to have to play them through those big cold streaks and be just torching your team's batting average. So I don't know. I think some more positive regression is coming because like his home run per fly ball rate again. Last 2 years, 19%, 22%. It's only at 15% right now. So I think we're going to see some more home runs between now and the end of the year. But I would need to see that strikeout rate trend kind of correct itself a bit before I'd be buying back in.
Yeah, the strikeouts are really concerning because he made strikeout gains going from like 2017 to 2018 to 2019. You're like, okay, this is a guy who's trending around 20 to 22% strikeouts, but like 30 plus homer power, right?
Yep.
And because he's such an amazing defender, he plays every day. So even if he goes on an extended cold streak, he's not going to get sat, right? Because he's just such a good defender on the hot corner. To this year, like, you didn't want him playing in your lineup. Like, you wanted them to give him a day off, and they weren't. And you have to wonder, like, how much of, especially the early season struggles, might have been related to the hip surgery he had in the offseason. And that's that was the reason I faded him coming into the year was the hip surgery.
Yeah.
But it hasn't really gotten better. Like, and that's the concerning part. You would have thought that at some point it would get better. But like you said, like the strike zone patience is not there. Yes, he's starting to walk a little bit more, but that hasn't turned into a better swinging strike rate. It hasn't turned into a better overall strikeout rate. I'm probably going to fade him next year again. There's just too much other talent at third base for me to go back to the well on it, outside of maybe in some draft and holds where, you really want to accumulate stats and get guys who are going to play every day.
I think you have to treat him as a guy who can give you 25 homers with a 220 to 240 average. And if he happens to, with the ability to potentially give you better, If he happens to exceed those expectations, then cool. But don't draft him assuming that you're getting, 2018 Matt Chapman, with a 280 average and stuff like that. So
I just think his name value is going to keep him too high up in the ADP.
I think so too. Yeah, I think there's too many Chapman stands out there that there's going to be someone in your draft willing to take him higher than I will.
I'd love to have him on my real life team. I don't think I want him on my fantasy team.
Fair enough.
All right, what about Brandon Lau? Because this is the guy I was really big on coming here, and he was absolutely dreadful in the start of the season. Really starting to pick it up now. Month of August, he has been on fire, hit 8 home runs, 2 stolen bases, hitting 263. Is this the Brandon Lau we should expect kind of moving forward?
Yeah, he was another guy I just wasn't in on. He has, honestly, his strikeout percentage is not that bad considering how high his swinging strike rate is. Like, his swinging strike rate is, since he's come to the majors, 17.6% up to 19%, then 15.5%. Now it's at 16.3%. That's really high. That usually corresponds to a 30% plus K rate. The guys with that profile, again, they're going to be subject to cold streaks, can hit 220, 230, 240. They can also hit, 250, 260, 270 when they're going well, if you get them enough on a hot streak. I like him, but he plays in Tampa, and we know what that means. When he's on a cold streak, they're going to sit him. So I have to take that into consideration when drafting a guy like that. He could be a huge drain on my average, and he could also not get the at-bats I'm expecting him to get. The power is legit. There's no question about that. I think he's a good guy to own from here on out the rest of the season, but it's just going to depend on the draft cost next year. I think, again, there will be someone who will be higher on him than me.
Yeah, my biggest concern with Lau right now is, one, like you mentioned, Tampa Bay. It's just he's being Tampa Bayed. Is that what we're gonna go with? I don't know.
You can use that.
He's being Rayed. I don't know. He's whatever's happening with the Rays and they're platooning and moving guys in and out of the lineup. It limits his upside because right now he's got 30 home runs and 6 stolen bases, which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But if he's not going to play every day, especially as they start bringing up more guys, like Vidal Brujan's going to be back up next season, right? There are going to be other guys that they bring up. Josh Lau might be up at some point as well. This could mean he's not playing every day. And if that's going to happen, it's going to be really frustrating to own, especially if you play in weekly leagues or NFBC formats. There's nothing worse than, he's got a 7-game week and he only plays in 4 of them. Right?
Yeah. And I think in like Yahoo leagues where you can make daily changes, I think that's where you can get your Brandon Lau shares or just Ray hitters in general, Rosarena, stuff like that. In Fantrax and NFBC where you have to make weekly changes or even bi-weekly changes, I think they're a lot more frustrating to own. And I just don't think I'm going to be the high man on Lau. The power.
I was the high man or one of the high men on him this year, and you add in the Tampa Bay-ness of it, and then you add in the fact that he's not running as much as I thought he would run.
Oh, you thought he was going to run more?
Yeah, he had 3 stolen bases in 220 plate appearances last year. He had 5 stolen bases in 327. I thought if he got 600 plate appearances, we'd be looking at 10 to 15 stolen bases. Well, we're not looking at that.
He basically had 225 last year, 500 this year. So basically half. Like he's gone from 3 to 6. It feels about right. Maybe he would be at 7, but I don't know. I don't know enough. I guess I just wasn't.
I thought we were looking at like a 30-12 kind of season.
Oh, okay.
Which we could. If he steals like 3 more bases, then maybe we're looking at a 35-9. That's fine, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's the playing time questions. I wonder where he will go. He's one of those guys that I'm I think will be a little bit polarizing. I think he's going to go high up in some drafts, and other drafts he may fall. Second base is still pretty weak, but it's going to get some added heft to it with like Trey Turner being second base eligible and things like that. So it'd be interesting to see where he goes.
Yeah, the thing is, in any draft in any year, the most plentiful thing is empty power. I can find guys who can hit me 30 homers with a 230 average everywhere. So it doesn't excite me. So the fact that guys like him go, in the 4th, 5th, 6th round, I just don't get it. Like, that's where I'm piling up my assets that I can't get later in the draft. So I think that process-wise, you're limiting your team, your best optimized team by taking guys like him early.
That's fair. Let's talk about Jorio Solaire, because this is another one of those guys, another guy of mine that I've always really liked. Solaire. I was big on him in his breakout season, and I went back to the well this year, and that hasn't paid off well until recently, because he started off just absolutely atrociously, but since the All-Star break, he has been fantastic. 13 home runs since the All-Star break, 267 after hitting 7 home runs with an 186 batting average in the first half. What's the real Jorio Solaire, and is he a guy that you think will be able to carry these gains into next season?
So for me, I don't know how long ago, maybe like a month or so ago, he was the most obvious pickup because his BABIP was like 180 or something like that, and his home run per fly ball rate was like 8 or 9%. And this is a guy who, last 2 years, 28% and 23% home run per fly ball rate. And he's still only at 15.7 right now. I'm still expecting more regression coming. I'm expecting him to keep piling in the home runs to end the year. So looking at his skill set, that's what he is. He's a guy who doesn't make a ton of contact, but when he does, they go out of the park. He's actually got the best contact of his career this year at 71%, and 83% zone contact rate. So if you can get him at a decent price next year, because he's only hitting 213 right now, so people probably will look past him a bit, but he's got 244 BABIP. So I expect him to hit closer to 240 next year, I would say, maybe 245, something like that. It's a guy who's always had a ton of power. He had a lot of injury issues. Finally was able to stay healthy in 2019, but those are the guys that you want to avoid the next year. When all of a sudden the guy breaks out because he finally had health, don't buy in the next year at that premium price. Wait for him to revert back and then buy low again. So if you can buy in low for 2022, if you just need power, empty power guys, again, he's a very good source of that, especially if he's in a good lineup.
Yeah, the question J Hook's asking is where's he going to play next year? That's a good question. I think a lot of people are assuming the same thing, that them redoing the CBA will include the DH in the National League.
Okay. Yeah, I would assume
which would mean there's now 15 more teams that can use him at DH. So I mean, he could end up just about anywhere. But I mean, Jorio Solaire has real manpower. He had 48 home runs in Kauffman, which, for those who don't know, is a pitcher's park. So, you get him anywhere, he's going to hit, and give him the ability to DH. He can hit 40 home runs, I think. He got really, really unlucky. I think he had a hard time adjusting to the new ball, because the new ball actually favors people who hit line drives as opposed to kind of these big looping, towering shots. And so once he got kind of that on under control, you saw him really start to, hit the ball out of the yard at Kauffman. And now that he's in Atlanta, which is a much smaller stadium, he's hitting a ton of home runs. So I think he's one of these guys, especially ends up in a good spot, maybe a place like Washington, maybe back with Atlanta. Maybe I'm trying to think another maybe good National League spot. Maybe Milwaukee.
He would be amazing for him, I think.
One of those kind of spots you could easily see him going back to being a 40-run home run hitter.
Yeah, I think if he closes out the year hitting under 230, which I expect him to, I think a lot of people are going to look at that really low batting average and kind of underrate him. So if you can get him at a good price, this is why I say it's not that important to get power early. It's much more important to get guys who give you good average and steals base, and then you take power late, because how many guys have we been through just now that we're talking about, like, pick 200 or later possibly, and they're all guys who can hit 30 to 40 homers. So this is every single year, every single draft. These guys are there. You just have to build your team so that you can take those guys on.
Yep. All right, let's finish out with Aaron Judge. This was a guy that when I took him in like the 6th round of that podcast draft, you laughed at me. And I was like, I'm getting to steal Aaron Judge. Now, at the end of the day, he's had 29 home runs, 6 stolen bases, hitting 292. It's not been a bad deal. It's been a little bit frustrating with the injuries, but not nearly as frustrating as it's been in years past. The problem is, I think he's going to go back to being like a 2nd-round pick next year or a 3rd-round pick next year, and I can't pay that price.
Exactly. I like Aaron Judge's skills. I mean, because he's a power hitter, but he's a power hitter who also gives you a pretty good average. And this year he's actually contributed 6 steals too, which you mentioned. Which in the past, he's had 9, 6, 3, 6 steals. So like he does chip in steals. I like Aaron Judge. I don't like his price. Because again, I'm looking more for 300 hitters, 20 to 30 steals. I'm looking for those kind of guys. Where he goes. I understand his draw. This year coming in, the injury risk was too much for me, but hey, it's worked out for you. So, kudos to you. I think for
the injury risk, the injury risk was great in the 6th round.
Yeah.
It was not great. He was going in the 2nd round of some main event drafts. He went in the 3rd round of one of my main event drafts. And I there's no way I can do that. Right. Like, if that's where he was going with the injury risk coming in, now the fact that he's probably going to finish the season with like 135 to 140 games played, like he's going to go back to being a 2nd, 3rd round pick. And I just can't do that. It's just insane.
Exactly. And, for where you got him, I think it was a great risk to take. But I think he's going to go back to 2nd, 3rd round, and I'll probably be out at that price. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is going to wrap us up for this episode. Dave, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, buddy. It's good to be back.
Yeah, it's good to talk to you. Like I said, we're gonna talk as soon as we're off the air, and then kind of maybe figure out a more reoccurring role for you here on the pod. So that way, I've got someone to talk to each week, and it gives you someone to talk to each week. Well, maybe it'll inspire Jake to get off his ass a little bit.
Yeah. Let's hope.
Remind everybody.
That is why I bought this microphone. So
there we go. Remind everybody where you can reach on social media, and then plug anything you got going on. That's
Run DMCD on Twitter, and I'm always there to help you guys out, answer questions, whatever you got. You should be seeing more from me on Rotographs, and hopefully more on Rotosaurus to come soon as well. And High Stakes Heat with which is my podcast with the aforementioned absent Jake.
And you can reach me on Twitter at Justin Mason FWFB. You can email me or the show, friendsoffantasybenefits@gmail.com. You can read my written work at friendsoffantasybenefits.com, Fangraphs, and TGFBI.com, and hear me on the Sleeper and the Bus and TGFBI podcast, as well as, of course, this one. That will do it for us, for Dave and myself. Thank you for listening. Have a fantastic baseball season.
Fun times in Cleveland again. Still Cleveland. Come on down to Cleveland town, everyone. Under construction since 1868. See our river that catches on fire. It's so polluted that all our fish have AIDS. We see the sun almost 3 times a year. This guy has at least 2 DUIs. The flats look like a Scooby-Doo ghost town. Don't slow down in East Cleveland or you'll die. Our economy's based on LeBron James. Buy a house for the price of a VCR. Our main export is crippling depression. We're so retarded that we think this is art. It could be worse though, at least we're not Detroit. We're not Detroit.